Today I'm going to tell you the story of how Enoch, Noah's ancestor, became the angel closest to God, and even how he had to be beaten 50 times by God himself. And so Metatron can be called by several different names. Menhatron, Metatron, anyway, there are many. Our little bird just pooped here, man. What a lack of respect. What a lack of respect, man. Anyway, Metatron has several different titles. He is the mediator between God and humanity, God's spokesperson, the angel of life and death, and mainly God's scribe. In the Talmud, the sacred Jewish book, he is given this name, right? That's kind of his role, to be God's own scribe. The class of angels that Metatron belongs to varies quite a bit depending on the source. He has already been called an archangel, a cherub, but for me specifically, the way I see it, I consider him more of a seraph because of his closeness to God. Seraphim usually have that. That's why they have 6 wings, to cover their faces so they don't look directly at God. And also because Metatron is described as a burning angel, right? Basically made of fire, covered in fire. In fact, another title Metatron has is the Prince of the Seraphim. And even though Metatron isn't very famous in biblical stories, right? In fact, he's not mentioned in the Bible. He's more famous in Jewish mysticism and post-biblical stories and also in occultism. But even so, he's quite well known. Aside from the main archangels, Gabriel, Raphael, and Michael, I think he is the most well known, possibly due to his role in Supernatural, where he's notably one of the few characters not wearing a suit. Not that it really matters, right? And because he's a seraph, Metatron also ends up having, let's say, a privilege that few angels have, actually few beings have, which is being able to see God's face directly. And because he's a seraph, like I said, right? Metatron ends up being very close to God and has several pairs of wings. I'll talk more about that later. But possibly these pairs are also used so that he doesn't end up looking directly into God's eyes, into the face of God. Well, Metatron wasn't chosen to be God's scribe for nothing. This has a lot to do with the other life he had, his human life. As Enoch, well, Enoch was kind of Noah's ancestor. Although, the way I'm saying it, it sounds like there was a big age difference between the two. But actually, Enoch would kind of be Noah's great-grandfather, and he's part of the first generations of humanity mentioned in the Bible. He became very famous because besides having a book, the Book of Enoch, right, which is actually quite controversial, he also became famous for having a very close friendship with God, so to speak. He was God's buddy. And the story even says that he walked with God. What stands out the most in his story is that, unlike everyone else from that time, he didn't die, okay? The truth is, according to his story, he was taken up to heaven, but we'll talk more about that later on here. But besides these stories, since there is much more about Enoch, he is surrounded by mysteries. There are ancient books, the so-called Apocrypha, right? In case you don't know, Apocrypha are basically non-canonical Bible stories. Think of them as spin-offs. In those books, they say that Enoch received several secrets of the universe, saw angels, learned about the stars, and many other things. And because of that, he is respected in several religions. In Islam, he is even seen as a prophet who invented writing. And according to some Jewish traditions, they say he went through a metamorphosis, a transformation. Wow, it's really raining here. What a heavy rain, but you won't hear it because I'll put something to filter out the noise, right? But it's really raining here. What was I talking about again? To understand how Enoch ascended to heaven, we should look at the apocryphal books that mention him, right? The books of Enoch, there are at least 3, maybe more, but I only know of 3. His first book is the most well-known. It's the book where we really understand the reasons why God sent the flood, why he brought the flood to earth. Of course, the Bible does mention the reasons, right? It says that things were complicated on earth, people didn't care about anything anymore. But the book of Enoch goes much deeper into this, because there it talks about the Watchers. They were angels who ended up falling in love with human women, came down to earth and kind of, got involved with them. And from that, giants were born who destroyed the earth and caused chaos here. And then the archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, saw everything that was happening. They told God, and he ended up sending the flood. And besides the flood, the archangels are also sent to hunt down the Watchers, who were led by Samyaza, and also some giants who managed to escape the flood. Well, this is just the first part of the book, and it's the most well-known part. But there's a lot more, like, for example, Enoch doing something like Dante, Inferno right there, and paying a visit both to the abyss and up in heaven. Well, in the case of Inferno, it would be the abyss, right? According to this passage here. And from there, I went to another place which was more terrible than the previous one, and I saw something terrible, a towering fire that burned and blazed. It was a deep abyss. I couldn't see its extent or its size. And he also ended up visiting the watchers during their punishment. So I asked, why is this place so terrible and painful to look at? Then Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me, answered, Enoch, why are you so afraid and astonished? And I replied, because of this terrible place and because of the pain present here. And he said to me, this is the place where the prison of the angels is, and here they will be kept imprisoned forever. Well, in the case of the journey to heaven, the description happens in chapter 6 and 7, more or less. There he ends up seeing the house of crystal. I entered and approached a wall built with crystal stones and surrounded by tongues of fire, and I began to tremble. And as I trembled and was afraid, I fell on my face. And I had a vision, and behold, there was a second house larger than the previous one, and its entire door was open before me, and it was built of flames of fire. He also saw the throne of glory, and I looked and saw there a lofty throne. Its appearance was like crystal, and its wheels were like a shining sun. And from beneath the throne came rivers of burning fire, so that I could not look at it. And the great glory sat upon it, and his robe shone brighter than the sun, and it was whiter than any snow. Well, if Dante ended up seeing hell, purgatory, and paradise, of course our dear Enoch here would also see three things, but the third was not purgatory. He ended up seeing the stars themselves. And as if that were not enough, at the end of the book, as I told you, Enoch doesn't end up dying. He ends up being taken to the heavens, and not by just any angels, but by the archangels. And it happened after that his name during his life was raised up to that Son of Man and to the Lord of Spirits. Among those who dwell on the earth, he was taken up in the chariots of the Spirit, and his name disappeared among them. And from that day on, I was no longer counted among them. He placed me between the two winds, between the north and the west, where the angels took the cords to measure for me the place for the elect and the righteous. And there I saw the forefathers and the righteous who have dwelt in that place since the beginning. And it came to pass after this that my spirit was translated and ascended to the heavens. And I saw the holy sons of God. They walked upon flames of fire. Their garments were white, and their eyes shone like snow. I saw two streams of fire, and the light of that fire shone like hyacinth. And I fell on my face before the Lord of Spirits. And the angel Michael, one of the holy angels, took me by my right hand and led me. And he brought me among all the secrets. And he showed me all the secrets of righteousness. And he showed me all the secrets of the ends of heaven, and all the storehouses of all the stars and all the luminaries, from where they come out before the holy ones. And he transported my spirit to the heaven of heavens. And there I saw something like a structure of crystal. Among those crystals, tongues of living fire. And my spirit saw the belt that surrounded that house of fire. And on its four sides there were rivers full of living fire. And they surrounded that house. And around it were seraphim, cherubim, and Ophanim. These are the ones who do not sleep and guard the throne of his glory. I saw angels that could not be counted, thousands of thousands and 10,000 times 10,000, surrounding that house. And Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Phanuel, and the holy angels who are above the heavens, they were there and came out of that house. And they came out of that house, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Phanuel, and many holy angels without number. And with them were the Ancient of Days, his head white and pure as wool, and his garments were indescribable. And I fell on my face, and my whole body dissolved. My spirit was transformed, and I cried out with a loud voice, with the spirit of power. And I blessed, glorified, and exalted. These blessings that came out of my mouth were pleasing before that Ancient of Days. And that Ancient of Days came together with Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Phanuel, and thousands and tens of thousands of angels without number. That angel came to me and greeted me and said to me, "You are the Son of Man who was born for righteousness, and righteousness remains upon you. And the righteousness of the Ancient of Days does not abandon you." And now moving on here to the second book of Enoch, which is the Slavonic book, also called the Book of the Secrets of Enoch. Here there is a description of Enoch's journey through the seven heavens, where he encounters several different layers of heaven, ranging from the place where the stars are kept to the place of divine punishment for sinners. And there's also the encounter with the Creator himself, which happens there in the 10th heaven, where he sees the face of God, and God commands the angel named Retil to dictate to Enoch 360 books containing all the secrets of creation, of nature, and of human souls. In other words, Enoch here has practically become almost omniscient about everything that happens in the world, right? The guy found out about everything. And on top of that, in the final parts, Enoch returns to earth for 30 days to teach his children, such as Methuselah, about how to live righteously before being taken permanently by God. But things really happen in the third book of Enoch, which is the Hebrew book of Enoch, where the guy named Ishmael meets an angel who calls himself Metatron. In fact, he says he has several different names. The angel Metatron, the prince of the presence. He told me, I have 70 names corresponding to the 70 nations of the world, but my king calls me Nar. But the main thing happens in chapter 4, where Metatron says it clearly, that before he was known as Enoch, son of Jared, confirming that, in fact, Enoch. He became the angel Metatron. I asked Metatron, why are you called by your creator's name with 70 names? You are greater than all the princes, higher than all the angels. And he answered me, because I am Enoch, son of Jared. When the generation of the flood sinned, the Holy One, blessed be he, took me from their land, to be a witness against them in the high heavens, for all future generations. And from here on, Metatron begins to speak about how his transformation into an angel happened. For example, his increase in size and also his wings. The Holy One placed his hands upon me and blessed me with 1,365 blessings. I was increased and elevated until I reached the width and length of the world. And he caused 72 wings to sprout from me, 36 on one side and 36 on the other, and each wing covered the entire world. He fixed them on me, 365,000 eyes, and each eye was like the sun itself. And Clara also spoke about his metamorphosis, his body being covered by fire. When the Holy One took me to serve the throne of glory, my flesh was transformed into flames, my muscles into burning fire, and my bones into coals of juniper, the light of my eyelids into the splendor of lightning, my eyeballs into torches of fire, the hair on my head into blazing flames. All my limbs became wings of burning fire, and my body became blazing fire. The craziest thing of all is that Metatron was so highly regarded there in the heavenly court that he even earned a title that no other angel ever had, that of Little Yahweh, or Lesser Yahweh. The Holy One made for me a throne of glory similar to his own throne of glory. He spread over it a covering of splendor, glory, beauty, grace, and mercy. He placed a royal crown upon my head in which were set the 49 precious stones, shining like the light of the sun. He called me the Lesser Yahweh, in the presence of all his heavenly household, as it is written, for my name is in him. And of course, Metatron ended up learning much more about the secrets of creation. God established me as prince and sovereign over all the princes of his kingdoms, and every angel who has something to say before the Holy One must say it before me. Everything I speak in his name must be observed. The Holy One revealed to me all the secrets of creation and all the secrets of wisdom. There is nothing in heaven or in the depths of the world that is hidden from me. He opened the doors of wisdom to me, of the understanding of life and the Torah. That is, basically Metatron knows everything. He is almost omniscient. Or maybe, according to these scriptures, he really is omniscient. Well, it turns out that all of this ended up causing Metatron to receive a punishment. That's because a man, once he went up to heaven, ended up confusing him with God himself. That didn't end well for Metatron. That's because he ended up receiving 60 lashes of fire by God's own command, to prove that no, he was not God. In the beginning, I used to sit on the throne of glory at the entrance of the seventh palace. But when Acre, and listen carefully, came to behold the vision of the throne, and fixed his eyes on me, he was afraid and trembled. His soul was horrified, and he said, there are, in fact, actually 2 powers in heaven. At that moment, a voice came from heaven saying, return, rebellious children, except Acre. Then the angel Anaphiel came by order of the Holy One, and gave me 60 lashes of fire, and made me rise from my seat, so that everyone could see that I was only a servant, that there was someone above me. Metatron also showed Rabbi Ashmael that he guarded the destiny of souls. Metatron said, come, I will show you where the souls of the righteous, both created and yet to be created, are, He showed the throne of glory, and beneath it were the souls of the righteous, shining like the heavenly lights. And he also had control over the souls of the wicked. I saw the souls of the wicked in the place where they are punished. And Metatron said to me, "These are the souls of those who did not keep the commandments of the Holy One, but they remain here until the day of the great judgment." Well, I said here that he has dominion over the souls, but I think he was really just showing Ishmael where the souls are, not exactly that he has dominion. Anyway, in any case, there's a much more interesting part, where he ends up showing the rabbi simply the letters with which God would have created the universe. And he explains that these letters shine in his own crown and also on his body. With these letters, the heavens and the earth were sealed. The letters with which the mountains and hills were created, the letters with which the seas and rivers were created. They shine with the splendor of lightning and fly from one side of the universe to the other. In this case, these letters he's referring to are actually the name of God, right? Yod He Vav He. After that, Metatron said that despite all that he has, he remains only an instrument of the divine will. The Holy One said, "I called him Metatron, my servant, the only one among all the sons of heaven. For I gave him all power except the power to forgive sins." And Metatron replied, "All honor and glory belongs to the one who lives forever." If you watch the video up to this point, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Share it as well because it helps me a lot. And goodbye.